The following presentation of City Cinematheque is made possible in part by the support of Instituto Cervantes, the Consulate General of Venezuela in New York, CNOC, Centro Nacional de Cinematografía de Venezuela, Patty and Gustavo Cisneros, Banco Consolidado, New York Branch, Banco Industrial de Venezuela, Banco Mercantil Venezuela, and Banco Unión. Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today, it's our pleasure to screen for you the classic 1985 film from Venezuela, Oriana, directed by Fina Torres. This is a memory film. It's about a woman living in France who goes back to her native Venezuela to discover a great deal about the history of her own family and about her country. It's a film made from a distinctly woman's point of view. And it's our pleasure today to have a woman to talk about it. In fact, the director of the film and co-author of the script, Fina Torres. Now, take this opportunity to enjoy the beautiful and moving Oriana. Welcome back to City Cinematheque. I hope you have enjoyed today's opportunity to see Oriana, the 1985 film from Venezuela. It's a great pleasure to have with us today the director and co-author of that film, Fina Torres. Fina, welcome to City Cinematheque.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Jerry.
Hi. Let's start. We have Fina Torres here, but actually I would like to start our discussion with someone else, someone who was very important to this film and I know very important to you. This is a film based upon the writings of a woman named Marvel Moreno. She has not been translated into English, although while writing in Spanish, she's been translated into a number of other languages, French and Italian. Won awards in those languages. I know your friendship with her was very important. Could you tell us a little bit about Marvel Moreno and also how this idea for this film developed from her story, from your relationship with her?
Yes. I met Marvel in Paris in 1973, in December 1973. I was working with her husband, Plinio Mendoza, that is a very good journalist from Latin America. He's Colombian too. And I worked for him like 2 years before going to Paris, and I was a photographer before. So when I came to Paris with Plinio, he presented me to introduce me to Marvel, and so immediately we became very, very good friends. And she was starting to write at that moment. She had written like 2 or 3 short stories. And Plinio always said that she had a very, very big talent. She was a very talented woman. So, you know, she was from Barranquilla. Barranquilla, it's a city from Colombia, in the north of Colombia, very Caribbean.
Yes, indeed.
It's very like Venezuela, very like people from Maracaibo or Caracas. So immediately we had this very good contact and like a friendship and complicity. So we became very good friends, and I went to the school, cinema school, and Marvel continued writing. And one day, she had 2 little girls with Plinio, and she went on the holiday to a very, very old house in Bretagne. You know, this coast in France.
Right, Briceno,
yes. Yes, and this house has it has the story that it has a ghost
Right.
that was haunting the house and etc. And she began having this idea of making this short story about Oriana. So we discussed a little bit, and so she began writing it. And after she finished it, she gave me to read, and I thought it was a very interesting story, short story, in one time, not like
Right.
in the film. But I thought it was like a resume of all our roots, of our common past that we could have together. So I asked her to give it to me, so maybe I could make a short film.
Right.
Short film, because I was making, the cinema school. So I began writing a little script for making a short film, and but it was difficult, so I stopped there and I made another film. And I always kept this idea behind my head. So after I went out from school, and I started working like assistant, like
Right.
editing, and it was so far away from me, the idea of one day becoming director, because it's difficult in France, it's not so easy. So one day I knew that in Venezuela they had created the Foncine. It's like this cinema direction, that was helping, make a
state fund
exactly.
to support cinema of the country.
Exactly, to finance and support. So they were opening a contest
Right.
to choose some scripts to make a long feature film. So I began writing again the script. I took the idea and I forgot about the story, the original story, and I began like working it, putting many, many elements of Venezuela, of something that I knew about everybody that I knew in Venezuela, family stories, everything. So I made the first draft, and I won the contest.
Okay.
So this was the first possibility of making this film. So I worked it again with Antoine Lacomblesse, and we made together the definite version of the script. And so in France, I went to the Ministry of
Foreign Affairs.
Yes, exactly, thank you. And so they gave me a subvention. So this completely a little bit the money we needed to make the film. So I started shooting it in '84, and I completed the editing in '85, and it went to Cannes, and I have the very good luck of winning the Golden Camera, and that's it.
And that's the story. When did Marvell see the film?
She was one of the first persons to see the film when we finished it.
Right.
When we finished the mixing of the film, the sound mix, I made a projection for my close friends in the Club 13 at Paris. And so it was Plinio and Marvel and many friends. And when the film was finished, Marvel was almost crying, and she said, "It's incredible. It's like the story of the iceberg. How did you get to know what was inside, below the water?"
Right.
And so that's it. So they were very happy.
That's very good. One should point out that it's very sad to say that Marvell passed away several
Yes.
years ago, but that a number of us who are familiar with her writings, as you are, hope that she will soon be translated into English.
Yes, I think somebody's working at that now.
Okay, that's very good. You brought up an issue that I think is very interesting about Oriana, and that is that this is a film about a woman who's a protagonist and a family, and it's not your family, but it is a kind of way of discovering the history of the modern Caribbean,
Yes.
particularly of this area
Yes.
of Colombia and Venezuela. What are some of the big historical changes that you wanted to show this woman discovering? What are some of the things that you wanted to see her discover?
I think what pushed me to make this film, I was not conscious at the moment when
Right.
I did it, but I think Venezuela has lived many strong changes.
Yes, indeed.
In history, it was
Agricultural, yeah.
agricultural country, and in the 30s they discovered this oil, very many quantities of oil, and this changed completely the economy of the country. Until the 50s, it was a very fast progression in changes, in moral, costume, everything, cultural changes. And in the 70s, when the oil got these terrible prices, it changed. It was definitely for the country. It changed completely, and all our roots, our culture, our identity was completely destroyed. And it was, I think I felt that, and I wanted to leave a testimony of what was our culture before this oil phenomena. And I think that's what I was really trying to do, to say to the new generations, to see this was like that before, and this is true, you know. And it was very shocked, because when the film went out in Venezuela in 85, young people like 14, 15, 17, they said, but Venezuela is not like that. This is very French. And everybody said, oh, this is like a French film. And I was really surprised, because it was not at all a French film. It was my youth, when I was a little girl, it was like that. I lived that, I saw that. And so I was very surprised to see how violent, you know, the lose of the memory how fast people can lose memory and identity and just believe that what they know now, it's the truth, and it has always been like that.
Now, this is very interesting, because to me, because this is a statement about the possibilities of cultural amnesia, a whole culture losing its memory of its immediate past. Also, it's very interesting because when we go into the world of Aunt Oriana and her childhood, there is a way in which it seems so distant from the modern world.
Yes.
That is this the 1930s? Is this the teens? Is this really the 19th century? Because this world of plantations and of agricultural society has a very different sense of time than we have. And I think that's one of the things that's most interesting about the film, is that you create this very different rhythm of life in the film.
Yes, that's Oriana. Yes, you know, I think this woman incarnates the will to stop the time and to keep not only her memories and everything, but just to keep the time stopped. And I think it's very interesting, because you know, in this crazy modernism, this change is so brutal and everything. This woman that just decided to keep this piece of land completely out of time, and to keep his souvenirs and to keep everything. It's like a rebellion, you know, from this time that passes inexorably.
Well, that's one of the interesting points, that for so much of the film, she is viewed as someone who is perhaps pitied by other members of the family. But one of the things your protagonist comes to learn is that she's not to be pitied, that there is this great strength in her, and that in fact she has controlled a number of events.
Of course, she's not a victim.
Exactly, not a victim.
No, at all.
No.
She controls. She makes it. This is expressed. She makes it express. She's not a victim at all.
Absolutely, and of course, this is she does have the final victory, because she passes the knowledge on to her niece, and the niece understands it. Not only has the knowledge, but understands its effects so well that Oriana has achieved her end of giving the land.
Yes, exactly.
To the son of Sergio.
Exactly, and it's also how do you say that? You know, when people, you know, how do you say that? Relève.
Yes. Act again? No.
Yes, you know, when somebody has something to do and he cannot finish, so she chooses somebody to continue her work.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's, you know...
To inherit.
Inherit.
She becomes the inheritor, not of the land, but of the mission.
Yes, exactly.
To maintain this.
Yes, and I try to work very, very hard, you know, the identification between Mary and Oriana.
Yes.
So it's like one only story, but lived through two characters different, you know? It's like a very strange symbiosis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is about the most difficult part of the script and of the film, that was to really, really just tell one story, but lived through two characters in different times, you know? So everything gets mixed up, because you don't know if it's memory, whose memory is it? Is it Oriana's memory, Mary's memory? But it's the same story, repeated and repeated and repeated. like memory, like functioning.
Absolutely the case. I think this is a very important film because it portrays the processes of memory.
Yes.
A lot of films say they are about memory, but what they really do is that they take a scene that is the present, and then someone says, or, oh, I remember.
Yes.
Then the screen goes blurry. Then we are in another thing that is the past,
Yes.
but it is presented as the present. There's
Yes.
no difference between these two. But some films, and I think Oriana is one of the very good films that does this, doesn't just go from present to past present, but it shows that memory is a complicated process.
Yes.
It's a struggle
Yes,
in a
exactly.
number of ways. Let's talk about one of the things I also find interesting in this film, and that is the discovery that the younger woman has about social relations in Venezuela, because this is a film that portrays a great deal about the relations among classes and also the relations among races.
Yes.
And why is it important for her to discover those things? What did you want for an audience to discover about the past of Venezuela in this?
Yes, I think that Venezuela is a very not particular country, because like Colombia and all the island in the Caribbean have the same constitution.
Yes.
of countries and people and cultures and races. We have the white Spanish that came, that conquered, the Indians were there, the Caribbean Indians, and then we had the black people that were bring from Africa,
yeah.
to make the hard work that the Indians could not do. So in this kind of melting pot, of mixing these cultures and races, we have all the Caribbean culture that's much alike between all the countries.
Yes.
And it's very interesting because, I think that our culture, this culture produced by all this melting and all this mixing, is very particular, because
Yes.
of course there is a difference and social rules and everything,
Right.
but at the same time everything is completely swept away,
Right.
with the pulsions, with desires, with everything. So it's a strange, now it has changed, but at the time before, these rules had to be very much respected, and getting across them
Right.
was terrible, was like really making very, very terrible decisions. That's the reason why Oriana, he has this terrible sin. She had not only had relationship with her brother,
Right.
but her brother was the son of her father with a black woman.
Yes.
So it was really, really, really terrible. It's a big sin to be punished terrible with death or something like that. And at the same time, these things were terrible. At the same time, they existed, and everybody knew about it. The patriarch that having many lovers between the black and mulattoes people, and this and that, and the natural born sons that were living with the family, but they were like 50-50, and it was very common.
Right.
But it could not go through some barriers,
This is very. There's 2 points that interest me about this. First of all, is this point of the continuity, because you can really draw a kind of circle around the Caribbean.
Yes.
That goes that connects from New Orleans to the
Yes.
Yucatan,
Yes.
to Venezuela, up through the islands and Cuba, because these are all plantation societies.
Yes.
that have this same mixture. And one of the features, even though each of these countries has very different features in some ways, is that there was for a while an official history of these cultures.
Yes.
That was very different from the unofficial history that everyone knew, and that was part of each of these
Yes.
cultures. So, and generally speaking, these were obviously, the history is written by the victors, or the
Yes,
people
of course.
with the money. So this was the official history of how these people came from Castile, or these
Yes.
people came from Scotland. But in fact, the social conditions created in this basin were very, very different from the places of origin, and had these 3 groups in them. So it's not just recovering, I think one of the things I like about the film, it's not just recovering a society swept away by oil, but it's also a society that was the true and unofficial history.
Yes.
Because if we looked at a history written during that epoch, it would not talk about
Of course.
this.
You're
It would
right.
not talk about this at all,
Yes.
even though this is the history that everyone knows. And they know that there's someone. The beginning image of your film is so wonderful, in which she says, I want Sergio
To be with
in
us.
the picture.
Yes.
In the picture, the official portrait
Yes.
must include everyone. And
Yes.
even as a child, she has this impulse
Yes, of course. This comprehension immediately of the yes.
So this is very interesting. Also, I like your point that people should understand that certain nations, whether it be Venezuela or Colombia, there's more identification with the surrounding region
Yes.
in many instances than there is with other parts of their own country.
That's true.
So this is becomes trans-regional. Now, what about this, Fina? I mean, you're to say something obvious. You're a woman, right? This is today's big observation on the show, right? No, but there is a point that this is a story that is told from woman's point of view about the history of the country. What's the tradition of women making films in Venezuela? Are there... was it difficult for you to make the film as a woman? More difficult? Just the same difficulty?
I cannot say if more difficult or less difficult, but because I have never been a man, so
Okay.
I cannot compare, you know.
Okay.
I think for everybody it's difficult.
That's the other confession. You've never been a man, right?
No, never. So I think for everybody it's difficult to make a film. It's really a very difficult thing to find the money, to convince people to put money in that. It's like very, very difficult for everybody. Venezuela is a very particular country for that. It's of course, we have a sort of machismo, like in all America Latina, you know, it's that. But at the same time, women are very, very strong in Venezuela. So it's a very soft machismo. I don't know what had happened in Venezuela, what
Right.
happened, maybe because we had too many wars and many men were killed at the end of the century and the
Right.
beginning of this one, and suddenly women had to work and to be providers and to be inside the dynamic of production, and this changed maybe the mentalities. But in Venezuela, the first important movie director, it is a woman,
Right.
Margot Benacerraf, who made two beautiful films, Araya y Reverón. They had prizes in Cannes, and she's really a genius. She's a very, very good filmmaker. She was the
Absolutely.
first one, the pioneer, the first one. And now in Venezuela, there have always been women making films. So now I think there are the same number of women directors as men directors. And they are very, very good ones, like Solveig Hogenstein, so much that I cannot remember the name, but many, many, many women. So I don't know what to say. It's a very particular country. It doesn't happen like this in Colombia, nor in
Right.
Cuba, nor in maybe in Argentina some, but not so much. And it's really Venezuela that has the most big
Percentage
of women director, and good ones.
Important.
Yes.
Important. Let's talk about, you've made another feature film that you've completed since Oriana,
Yes.
Celestial Clockwork.
Yes.
Our viewers, if they did not see it when it was released in the United States, they should know it's available on cassette, as is Oriana is available on cassette now in the United States. Celestial Clockwork takes place in Paris.
Yes.
And it's a retelling of the Cinderella story, a very fast-paced screwball comedy, we would say. But yet there are continuities between. There are certain things, not similarity of story, but similarity of issues. What did you want to do different when you made Celestial Clockwork? But what are some of the things you still wanted to?
I think first of all, I wanted to cut with Oriana because it was so strong for me, Oriana, so strong, so deep, like it was like a psychoanalysis, It was so strong that the script I wrote after, it was like Oriana number 2,
Okay.
And I realized that I was always I was going to repeat myself again and again, and it was very, very difficult for me to accept this idea. So I decided really to cut with Oriana and to make something completely different. A comedy in Paris, very modern, very up to date, and very light and very fast, the rhythm, the contrary of Oriana. And that's the reason I thought about this comedy. I know there are some points in common. Always this woman going from one continent to another continent, from one culture to another culture. In Oriana is one who comes back to
home.
Yes, no, to pick up his lost memory of his, to find his roots, and etc. In the Celestial Clockwork is a young woman that goes to seek. She's seeking for his life. She's and she goes from Venezuela to France, and so it was the country. But I know there's some points in common with both films, of course. But at the same time, I just wanted, to really, really like make a break so I could really do different things after and not repeating Oriana again and again and again.
Let's talk this Celestial Clockwork you completed 2 years ago. It was in release in the United States in 1996. It's now on cassette. So obviously Fina Torres has not stopped working or thinking or writing in the last year or so. What are some of the things that you are planning for the future? What are some of the things you would like to be doing?
Yes, I have 3 projects I'm working on. I hope they're going to be made because this movie making is so aléatoire. You never know. But I'm working in a French project, very interesting, about the last Truffaut script that was not shot yet. The name is Coup de Théâtre at Santa Cruz.
Okay.
And it's the story of a theater troupe that goes to Latin America, and get lost, and so all the déboires they have to go through to try to get back, or they stay, or everything. So it's the life of this French troupe in Latin America.
Okay. So again, it's this encounter of Europe and Latin America.
Yes, I love that very much. This is face to face between 2 cultures that are alike, but at the same time so different. Some points in common because our culture, Latin American, is too from Occidental. Right. But at the same time, we have this very, very good mixture of Black and Indian, and it makes us quite different. Right. So it's very crazy. And so I like very much this subject, and we're working very hard to make the production. And if everything goes well, maybe we'll be shooting this project at the end of the year in Cuba. And that's for that. And
we have only about 1 minute left, so the other 2 quick versions.
Surprise, for the next time you interview me.
Okay. Okay, so then the next time we do the interview, we get to find out of all these projects what Fina...
I will only say that the other one is American project in English and financed by American studio, and the other is another French project.
Okay, so now we have a triangular life of Latin America, France, and the United States.
Yes.
Glad to have you in the United States.
Okay, thank you.
And we're glad that you joined us today. If you'd like more information about this series or about City Cinematheque, please drop us a line. Drop it to City Cinematheque, City University Television, 25 West 43rd Street, Suite 1220, New York, New York, 10036. Let me give you that information again. Drop it to City Cinematheque, City University Television, 25 West 43rd Street, Suite 1220, New York, New York, 10036. Fina, thank you for joining us today, bringing only the insight that the creator herself can have on this stuff. And you are welcome back at City Cinematheque anytime it's possible. Great. And we hope that you'll join us again for City Cinematheque. Thank you for joining us today. The preceding presentation of City Cinematheque was made possible, in part, by the support of the Consulate General of Venezuela in New York, CNOC, Centro Nacional de Cinematografía de Venezuela, Patty and Gustavo Cisneros, Banco Consolidado, New York branch, Banco Industrial de Venezuela, Banco Mercantil, Venezuela, Banco Unión, and by Instituto Cervantes, dedicated to promoting a knowledge of the language and literatures of the Spanish-speaking peoples.